Earlier this week, U.S. federal agents arrested a former high-ranking staffer from the office of New York's current and former governor for allegedly acting as an undisclosed agent of the Chinese Communist Party, or a communist spy. On Tuesday, the U.S. Department of Justice unsealed an indictment alleging that 41-year-old Linda Sun deceived the highest leadership of New York's government to further the political agenda of the government of China.
The indictment lays out very clearly evidence that these actions taken by Linda Sun were an absolute betrayal of the trust of two administrations in state government, lying and misleading to these administrations, breaking our ethics rules, and even forging my signature on documents. But more importantly than that, that this is a betrayal of New Yorkers and of the American people.
That was New York Governor Kathy Hochul speaking to the press on Wednesday. While the news may come as a shock to many, for anyone who's been tracking the reported activities of the CCP here in the U.S., it may not be. Joining me now to discuss this is Gordan Chang, a distinguished senior fellow at the Gatestone Institute. He's the author of The Great U.S.-China Tech War and China is Going to War. You can follow him on X under the handle @Gordan G. Chang. Gordan, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thank you so much, Joseph.
So tell us what you know about Linda Sun.
Well, Linda Sun clearly was acting at the direction of the Communist Party as she tried to direct both administrations of Kathy Hochul and Andrew Cuomo to do certain things, to make life difficult for Tibet, for Taiwan, to arrange meetings with Communist Party officials. The story here is that this was almost inevitable, because the Democratic Party in New York has really looked to Chinese Americans as a large source of votes. And many Chinese Americans in New York have these very troubling relations with the Communist Party's United Front Work Department. And so you were going to have this because this was just an accident waiting to happen. And by the way, you know, when you look at San Francisco and Senator Feinstein's driver, you got the same thing there. You have a Democratic Party looking to Chinese for votes, and you see a lot of Communist Party flags flying over the city of San Francisco. That shows you that Chinese Americans have these relationships that need to be investigated, and the Democratic parties in both cities, San Francisco and New York, surely know what is going on.
Gordan, how serious was this infiltration? How much damage was done to the state of New York or the United States more broadly?
Well, it appears that Linda Sun was able to get the governor's office to not meet with Taiwan representatives, to give, Tibetans hard time. In the scheme of things, this may not have been existential, but the problem is that there are more Linda Suns for sure. And it shows you the infiltration of the Communist Party of the political system in the U.S. And it's not just the Democrats. The Republicans have similar problems as well. Different in nature, but certainly the Republicans are infiltrated as well. So the United States, when you look at the problem from a 30,000-foot view, you can see that our system has been thoroughly penetrated.
Is this kind of thing preventable, Gordan? How do we stop this from becoming just what's normal?
First of all, we need to break the links with China. And a lot of people will think that's extreme, but unfortunately, China uses every point of contact with the United States to subvert our society. And we need to make sure that Americans don't have incentives to commit acts of treason or to commit acts of espionage or even maybe sabotage. So this is going to have to be a really difficult exercise for us as we break linkages that have been built over the course of decades.
We are used to, most of us assume when there's kind of espionage, if that's the right term for this, and on some level it is, as you noted, it might be minor on the scale of what espionage can do, but we're used to seeing this at the federal level or expect that to happen. Why is it that the Chinese government is bothering to target states?
because it wants to control all of society. Take Eric Swalwell, the Democratic congressman from California. China's Ministry of State Security contacted him not for the first time, not when he was on the House Intelligence Committee, where, of course, he would be of great value to Beijing, but they contacted him when he was on the City Council of Dublin City, California, which means that they groom American politicians at a very early age. Now, that's not to say that Swalwell himself did anything wrong. We don't know that. But the point is that Swalwell could not have been the only person that China was targeting. So there's got to be hundreds of Swalwells across the U.S. because China wants complete control. Communist Party in China demands absolute control of Chinese society. Well, they also demand absolute control of the United States as well. Yes, they have not been able to get it, but they're certainly working hard and relentlessly toward that goal.
Yeah. And Gordan, to that point, these are the headlines that we are reading about, the things that we know about. What are you concerned is happening right now that we don't know about?
Well, we know about federal investigations into other New York figures, including the commissioner of police, which is a recent one. We know that a lot of people around Mayor Eric Adams of New York City have been investigated. So we're going to learn a lot more. And I think this is probably going to go to members of the congressional delegation from New York as well. So there is so much to happen. There's so much that we are going to learn. And remember, there's all of these disturbing contacts between China's Communist, the United Front Work Department, and Tim Walz, who is on the Democratic ticket. So there's a lot here that we are going to learn, I think, in the next few months.
And Gordan, in just a couple of seconds, I mean, we are almost out of time, but does this impact Tim Walz in some way? Because we've heard about that.
Yeah, I hope that it does, because it seems to me that when you have somebody with all of these disturbing connections, that person should not be one heartbeat away from the Oval Office. And I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, but as an independent, I think that somebody with those connections make that person ineligible. And that means the ticket that he is on, I don't think Americans should vote for that. I mean, I hope that Kamala Harris replaces Tim Walz so that we can have a better election.
I've got to cut you off. We are out of time, but thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Joseph.